Hola, hola, hola. Welcome back to a fresh episode of Corazon Chronicles. We are, I'm your host, Ray.
I'm Jannese.
And we are joined by
Lianne.
Let's go. And what's the name of your podcast?
Watch Us Thrive.
All right. So for you guys that don't know, this is Jannese's sister, younger sister. She's in town visiting for a little while, and we're actually getting ready to thug it out with this hurricane and stuff. So
it's very ghetto.
Yeah. So, she's stuck in the house with us. So we figured we would do a little episode. It was actually her idea, really, because she's got some questions and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a podcast swap episode.
Hey.
So we're going to dig into each other's brains a little bit.
Perfect. You have anything you want to add, baby?
So I'm excited because this is not the first time that my sister and I collaborate. We've done some stuff on my other podcast, Yo Quiero Dinero, and I've also been on her podcast, Watch Us Thrive. So it's fun to mix our content creation stuff together and now we're bringing you into the family. So this is fun.
Yes.
A little bit of an interrogation, maybe.
Just a little bit.
Okay, so I think I want to start off with a YouTube comment that we got on one of our latest posts. So if you didn't watch our latest episode called Sex, Lies, and Videotape, please make sure that you do because it was a juicy one.
I was just about to say, that was super juicy.
Juicy, okay?
I was up at 2 a.m. watching it.
We're mixing pop culture, relationships, all the things. And so this comment was actually on that video. And it's from Afro-Latin Chick. She said, I just love you two and this podcast. Keep them coming. Everyone needs to listen and have these types of conversations. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. One love.
Sweet.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Please keep sharing all of your comments, reviews. We love to hear it because obviously we're doing this because we're having a lot of fun, but we also want you to enjoy the content that we're creating. So if you're loving this, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts or leave a comment on our YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's more exciting to watch you guys as opposed to listen. I rather watch the episode than listen to it.
Oh.
Just because you can feel the energy and your guys' vibe is just very fluent. It's not forced and it's very enjoyable to watch. So
We have that natural chemistry.
yes.
Yeah.
It's not fake. It's not fake at all.
Thank you guys for the review. That was awesome.
Yep.
All right. So where do we start?
Do you want me to ask you guys questions first? Because I have them ready to go.
Oh my God.
There's a couple of things that I've been wanting to, really focus on Ray, because I know your side of the story, Jannese, obviously because we're sisters and we do talk, but I think this conversation is going to be based around the healthy relationship after leaving the toxic relationship. And our dynamics are very different. We both came from abusive relationships, me and Jannese. She dealt with emotional abuse. I dealt with emotional and physical abuse, which I talk a lot about on my podcast. If anyone wants to check out the full episode, you can listen to episode 10, full in-depth story. Yeah. But our dynamic is different because you are in now a healthy relationship, and me, I'm very much out of the dating scene because I don't feel like I'm ready.
Right, you have that trauma, right?
Yes, exactly. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about how difficult that next relationship is once you're out of the toxic one and the dynamics that both of you need to deal with. So my first question is, what made you both realize that you were in love with one another? And what does being in love look like for both of you? Ray, I want you to start first.
Oh, shit. Okay. All right. So I felt a crazy draw and attraction with your sister, just like the energy and the vibe that we had the first night that we met at the little caddies out on St. Pete Beach for sunset and stuff like that. Just how natural the conversation was. And I didn't really feel like I had to be turned on. Sometimes with other people, you have to not really be fake, but you don't really let your guard down, so you can't really be yourself.
Yeah.
So I would say I felt the big L word pretty quick. I mean, maybe within I don't know.
Who said it first?
Maybe 2 months. Who did say it first?
I'm putting y'all on the spot.
I would say it was
I might have said it first.
you.
Mm.
And then I was like, ew, you're a simp.
Or now that I know about love bombing, I felt like
Right.
maybe I was low key love bombing.
Right.
I didn't even realize.
Okay, so how quickly into the relationship did it happen?
I think maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 months
Okay.
from The first time we hung out?
Well, mine was 5 days, so I have you guys beat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on how much time you were spending with each other
Right.
too, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the second part of that question, what was it again?
It is. What does being in love look like for both of you? So, what does
okay.
that mean for you?
So being in love for me is just like really best friend, like a best friendship, you know, like it's a certain type of connection and trust, you know, beyond like all the walls and stuff like that of past traumas and stuff. But it's more of just being able to really truly be yourself. And wear your flaws as well too, because you know this person's gonna look past those things, which in turn helps you look past those things too. So I've gotten a lot of like healing out of being with someone who is so open and so emotional, because I'm pretty emotional as a guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and things affect me probably more than the high value male guy would be.
High value
Shout
male.
out to the Tate fan club out there, my God.
No, do not shout them out.
No, you're right. No,
No, I get that too, because that's definitely like, I'm not super into astrology, but we both are Virgos, which is like one of the first green flags that I saw with you. When she told me you were Virgo, I was like, oh shit, okay, I like this guy.
You kind of know.
But yeah, I can relate to the like wearing your heart on your sleeve and leading with your heart.
Right.
But yeah.
And it's like whenever for people that are like us that do that, sometimes
Gift and a curse.
Yeah, because it opens up the window for the vulnerability and being taken advantage of. No matter the sex or the relationship, it could be family, whatever. It kind of sucks that accepting people for their flaws and always seeing the best in somebody at the end of the day does kind of come with its downfalls too. So
yes, that was my big downfall. Staying longer than I knew I should have, but seeing the potential in that person and holding on to that. Oh, but it wasn't always bad. You know what I mean? And going back to the good parts, but eventually that outweighed the good for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And that sucks too, because when you see the real potential in somebody, you're like, man, if you would just like cut some of that stuff out, you would be way better. Even to yourself and stuff too.
For sure.
All right, baby, I'm gonna let you have it.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. So the first part of the question was, how long did it take for us to say I love you?
And what made you realize that you were in love with him?
Okay. So I remember saying it when I was in Puerto Rico, before you came and joined me on our first couples trip, which I did a little reel about this on our Instagram. If you don't follow our Instagram, it's Corazon Chronicles podcast. And I say that like us taking a vacation together so early in the relationship was such a good idea, because you get to see like who somebody really is when you're like in confined quarters, like 24/7. And so we got really like a lot of insight into what it's like to be with each other early on because of that. And I was like, oh my God, this man, like, he just cleans up after himself. He's not a messy person. Like, he goes to bed relatively early, like I do. Like, we're just not night owls in that sense. Yeah. We just got to see each other in a lot of different elements. And I think that we always say, like, Puerto Rico made us fall in love because of that, because we just had, like, it was almost like reaffirming the things that we saw glimpses of when we were together. But it's like, okay, this is, like, for real, for real. This is not just, like, he's pretending to be on his best behavior, like, when we're out on a date. Right. So I think that's a really good idea. Like, if you want to get to know somebody, take a fucking trip with them, because you'll either hate them or love them by the end of that trip.
Or move in with them.
Okay. But for me, I remember saying it, I think it was via text first. And I was hesitant about saying it, because I'm just like, this means a lot, you know, like this is a big deal to be like in love after you just like left a toxic thing, and you're just like, fuck, am I really going to allow this shit to like happen again? But I just couldn't fight it. Like once we got over my toxicity about like just the fear of being loved and vulnerable again, I jumped in like head first, because I'm like, I'm not going to fuck this up because of my past. And I think a lot of people can feel almost like they start self-sabotaging because they're afraid of like being hurt again. And honestly, being in love is probably one of the most vulnerable states that you can be as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were handing over your heart, and it's like, please take care of this.
Yeah.
But you don't have any guarantees about what that's going to look like.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
But I knew I was in love with you because you made me feel safe. And we've talked about that in the past, where that was like the number one character trait that I needed to feel in the next relationship, is like, if I don't feel emotionally safe, I'm not fucking doing this. And every time we've had a disagreement, a discussion, just a difference of opinion, I've never felt judged. I've never felt shamed about my emotions. I'm emotional as fuck.
We know.
I'm like, he's never made me feel like dumb about it. He's never made me feel like, what's wrong with you? Why do you have to be like that? It's just like, just tell me what's up and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that for me was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm in love with this guy. Like, I'm fucking here for this.
Oh my gosh. You guys are so cringe, but in the best way possible. And I know, we talked about it the other day, and when my friend Giovanna, shout out to her, was here, and we were just talking about our relationships and stuff. And, one thing that I mentioned is that there is still a huge fear for me in regards to going back out into the dating world, because my last relationship, I felt so unsafe, it got to the point where my life was almost lost. And there's just still this huge block that I have, this wall of like, yeah, I want that relationship, but then it's like, oh my God, what if it happens again? Mm-hmm. And that's the huge thing that's like stopping me really from even going back out there and starting the dating, because dating is exhausting. It's like you really have to be in it, especially if you're dating with purpose. Like, yeah, it's okay if you're going out there just to, have sex with people and, nothing comes of it. For me, I'm going to turn 35 next month. And it's like, I do want a life partner. I do want someone, that I can trust with my whole heart. But because of the trauma that I went through, there's still a huge block for me. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like some of that comes from not being able to trust yourself to make the right decision again in the future?
Can we pause for a second?
Yeah.
Just readjust this for a moment.
Yeah.
I think you've loosened it. Like I said, what do you think that you have some of that like rooted with not being able to trust yourself to make the right decision again, or maybe you feel like you'll miss the signs and stuff like that? Or
no, I know now that I'm gonna be on extra alert. Like the first orange flag that I see, I'm out. It's not even gonna allow it to turn red. And it's funny because I'm actually working with a life coach. Shout out to Karina from the One Day at a Time podcast. But she is a relationship coach, and I'm working with her currently. And she really helped me unpack that it's not really that I don't have trust within myself. It's just that I have a fear of feeling that feeling again, of having that experience again. But I know now for me, with the amount of work and healing that I've done, that there's no way that I will ever attract that type of person again, because I've worked on myself so much.
Right.
Compared to before. Like when I left an 8.5-year long relationship, I didn't do the healing that it was needed in order to heal from that pain.
Sure.
I used to be the type of person who would jump from one situationship to the next, running away from that feeling. But this is the first time in my life that I actually sat with that feeling, sat with that uncomfortableness that a lot of people don't want to do when they leave a relationship, whether it's toxic or not.
Yeah. By yourself, it's a journey only you can take. Right?
Absolutely.
It's like, people can be through similar things, but your whole shit is unique to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So how long have you been single, I guess, since this whole thing? You haven't really messed with anybody since this
No
guy,
one.
right?
I am 100% single and celibate.
Hey.
So nothing since that night, March 12th, 2021. So it's been 2.5 years.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. It's the first time in my life that I've ever been single for this long.
Does it feel like it's been a long time, or does it still feel fresh, like it was like kind of yesterday that this shit happened?
It's crazy. When we stayed at your Airbnb a couple nights ago, I actually did deal with a trigger that came up that was super unexpected. Me and my daughter, she's here on vacation with me too. And late night, we were hungry. We went to go to McDonald's to get something to eat. And when I'm driving off, I see the silhouette of a man standing in the parking lot of McDonald's. And for some reason, that silhouette triggered me to the night of when everything happened. And my ex was chasing after me when I got in my car.
PTSD hit.
That PTSD hit. The minute we got back into your driveway, I just broke down because I felt like my body was back in that moment. And that's the thing that a lot of us survivors of trauma, whether it's domestic violence or, any type of abuse, like those triggers is the hardest part.
Right.
Because you don't know when they're going to come up.
You don't know what they are, right?
No, like the physical wounds eventually healed, but that emotional wound is going to be there forever.
Damn.
And that's been the hardest part for me. So.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about how you were feeling about Jannese's last situation, just like the way that it had to kind of wrap itself up and stuff like that. And I know that you came down here to kind of be with her and stuff like that. Did you feel any similarities? I know hers wasn't necessarily physical, right? But yours wasn't only physical
No,
either. So
absolutely.
like, did you feel some similarities in there? Because was the last guy, was he unfaithful too? Is
Oh
there
yeah, there
infidelity
was
in it?
so
Okay.
much.
So you had all of that.
Yeah, there
which
was
is
a bunch of
form
similarities.
Domestic abuse
Yes,
too, because that's
yes.
like, that shit fucks people up.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the thing, that when people talk about these types of relationships, they think it's only a broken nose, a black eye, you're in the hospital. But a lot of these relationships start off like a slow drip. It's the emotional abuse, it's the verbal, it's the manipulation, it's the cheating, which me and Jannese both dealt with. Luckily for her, it never got physically abusive. But, you know, I say all the time that, and it sounds crazy for me to say this being a survivor, but I would rather the physical abuse as opposed to the mental and emotional, because that shit, like I said, it stays with you forever.
Right.
You know, it's not a wound that 20 years from now, I'm not going to deal with it. I am going to deal with it, you know, but eventually the physical wounds went away, but that's the hardest part. The next part that I want to ask you, you know, we're talking about the healthy relationship after the toxic one. So how have both of you been helping each other heal from your past traumas from your last relationships?
Okay. You want me to go first? For me, my last situation was kind of physical and was a lot of verbal like arguments and stuff like that, kind of sparked out of nowhere. So I guess the stability that your sister has probably been really good for me. Because my last one, it was like waking up, you didn't know if they were going to be in a good mood or what was going to be,
Yeah.
you know, what kind of situation you were going to come home to. You know, that moment you put your key in the door and you're like, you know, what kind of person am I going to see?
Yeah, walking on eggshells.
Hell
Same
yeah,
for me.
yeah. You never really know what's going to happen, like the triggers, right? I mean, everybody has their triggers, and so yeah, the stability for me has been that's been the real refreshing thing. And then I think probably how like emotional, like open that we've become, because I've always been real open like that. I was raised, my dad would have like family discussions and stuff, so I was always taught that everybody has a voice, everybody's, you know, equal, and, you know, everybody has a different side to certain things. So in my last situation, it wasn't really able to be like that. I mean, sometimes kind of, but not really, you know, because they didn't really know how to deal with their own emotions or whatever the case is. So I think that the stability and just like God, I just feel like it's like would come down to be like honesty, you know what I mean? Just because of how honest we are with our emotions and stuff.
Yeah. So Jannese, what about you? How is Ray helping you heal your past trauma?
Oh my God, where do we start?
We ain't got nothing but
I don't
time.
think I know everything either.
Well, you know that one of the things that I talked about, like in the beginning of our relationship, was this feeling of lack of emotional, like safety, of just being able to like talk about things and not be gaslit into believing that like I'm somehow the fucking problem, right? Like I'm cheating on you, but it's because of you, or you know, like
Why
that
do
type of
they
shit.
always do that?
Because they're fucking narcissists.
Yes.
I mean, let's be honest, they are fucking narcissists.
Yes.
But you know, you really do start thinking like that you are the fucking problem, and that the way to solve it is to just shut up and not complain and not have anything to say.
Yeah.
And I, as a result, and not just because of my past relationships, but I think also because of how our family dynamic was,
Yeah.
it wasn't really like an environment that encouraged openness
No.
and emotional intelligence. Like you just didn't really have a space to like talk about your feelings in
Yeah.
a way that like you weren't going to see some fucking reaction from somebody.
Right. It was just yelling and screaming
Yeah.
or the silent treatment.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's like both of those are not productive ways of dealing with your emotions. And
Right.
so I, as a person, gravitate and default to just shutting up and shutting down.
Same.
And you've seen that.
Yeah.
Right. Well, like when I'm feeling some type of way, like it's hard for me to just even say that I'm having some sort of reaction. And then you are not the type of person that likes that. So you're like, we're not going to just sweep shit under the rug and pretend like we're going to be cool. He's not going to let me just walk off and have a fit and just, you know, have a tantrum or just like emotionally shut down and be passive aggressive. And like, we're not doing that.
So you guys are not the type to go to bed angry.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
That's
He's
good.
like, what's wrong? He's
Right.
very perceptive of how my mood changes. And I think it's because when I'm good. And so when things are off, like, you know, right away, you know, it's not like
The
hard to see
RBF
that.
is real.
Yeah, but it's not hard to see,
Yeah,
right? It's not hard
yeah.
to see an energy change when you know what somebody's like normal state is. And then you're just like, oh, there's some weird shit happening
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So you call me out on it, which I appreciate. And I've gotten so much better at just talking about how I'm feeling and not letting it bottle up and build up, because that never leads to anything productive. And I think the second thing is you've just helped me like feel way more confident. So one of the biggest things that I think people don't understand, when you get cheated on, that shit fucks with your entire mental spirit. Like you start feeling ugly. You start feeling like not good enough. You just start feeling like, ew, like clearly there's something wrong with me. And the level of confidence that I am experiencing with you, you're just like very affectionate. You are always telling me I'm beautiful. You're always holding my hand. You're always looking for a reason to kiss me. Just like, and I don't have to do anything to initiate that. It's just like genuinely who he is. It's such a nice, refreshing thing to just feel desired and to know that like there is nothing wrong with me. It's just I was in a fucking relationship that had me all fucked up.
Right.
And it's been eye-opening just to see like how I've been able to reevaluate and reshape like how I feel about myself because I'm being loved properly. And I don't think you can experience that unless you put yourself out there, right? Like one of the things I always say is like you can do a lot of the self-work, right? You can heal a lot of that shit, but when it comes to figuring out how to have healthy conflict, how to deal with your emotions, how to make space for somebody else, like you have to do that in relationship.
Right. There's only so much healing you can do on your own.
Right.
Yeah.
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 I have a quick question about the infidelity thing. I know it's a super common thing for people to step out, and mainly men as well too. But when you got cheated on, was there ever like regardless of them trying to gaslight you into thinking that you were the problem, did you like do any like self-reflecting to see what could have added to that? Like maybe you guys weren't as physical as often as you used to be, or you think they were just kind of like just made that way to be a cheater? I've always been curious what makes people like feel the need to step out. I've met some guys in my life that they just kind of have that dog in their DNA, right?
Yeah.
They just can't help but always have wandering eyes and whatever, and pursue that. And then other guys, I feel like other people, they get to the point where they're just like, look, we're not having sex anymore. It's like, I don't want to always be the one engaging it. And then when I'm engaging it, it feels like she's doing it because she has, or they're doing it because they have to. And that's a gross feeling too.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you guys did anything that maybe you were like, well, maybe if I did this different, it wouldn't have happened. Or were they just, I mean, I guess regardless, they were still pieces of shit, but I'm just trying to figure out if maybe.
No, I mean, for me, thinking back to the last
you.
relationship, like he was just a piece of shit to begin with. And I didn't realize that until later on in the relationship. Like this was a habitual thing that he did even with exes before. But just the shit that I found in his phone was just ridiculous. Like it was crazy, the shit that I found. And this is just like a pattern for him. Just the same way, like when we ran his background check, he's done this same exact thing time and time again. So regarding my situation, like that is who he is at his core. And I don't think he's ever really taken the accountability within himself to be like, maybe I need to change my ways. When I think about how I was in the relationship, I was very much a people pleaser. I was very much, I'm willing to do anything to make this work, to the point that he wanted me and his ex to be a throuple.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
That's so
like
crazy.
the same bitch that he talks so much shit about, the woman who put him in prison was the same one that he cheated on me with and wanted us to be a whole, sister wife situation.
You're just like,
It's crazy.
I'm just glad that, you
That
guys
fucking
didn't have
Gemini
a child
shit.
together, I'm just glad you guys didn't have a child.
No.
Because that would have been a whole.
Oh, no. I may have been ignorant in a lot of things, but that's one thing that I was like, there's no fucking way I would ever.
So I've asked Jannese this in the past, where I've brought it up about like that there's, with our exes, I know that it's a lot of like pain and stuff associated with them. But do you recall like what was good about it? What got you hook, line, and sinker?
Oh,
about
yeah.
It? Was
Oh,
there
yeah.
love bombing and stuff, or was he actually really good? Was he sweet, affectionate?
Yeah,
all that
no.
stuff?
In the beginning, I literally thought I found the one. Like this was my third serious relationship, second time that I'm living with someone, and it was great in the beginning. We communicated effectively. You know, I thought anytime we had an argument in my last relationship, I was used to name calling, blocking, you know, sweeping shit under the rug. But with him, we actually talked things out in the beginning. And it was very much a lust driven relationship. Like the day after I met him, we had sex.
Sure.
Right? 5 days after that, I'm falling in love with you. 2 weeks after that, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. 2 weeks after that, we move in. So it's very much like and this was during COVID.
Wow.
This is during quarantine. So then the world's locked down and we're around each other 25/8. You know what I mean? And it just progressed very quickly, but it was very much surrounded. I don't really think I was in love with this man. I was obsessed. And I had this, yes, it was definitely an infatuation and a longing of not wanting to be alone. Because that was something about the old Lianne that was very much a codependent person in relationships and hated the thought of being alone. So I got attention from someone who I thought was so attractive. I felt like he was out of my league back then. Like, oh my God, this man is so attractive. Why does he want me?
Yeah, that's a weird mind fuck,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm just going to like latch on to him forever and just deal with the bullshit that came with him. But slowly, like I said before, it was like a slow drip of like the mask that he was wearing started to come off. And, you know, spending 24/7 with someone, you can only pretend to be this great person until you're not.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know? Something's
And
going to get triggered.
Oof,
you know,
it
life's
happened.
full of all kinds of ups and downs,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
geez. All right. So I guess my final question about anything like that would be if you could go back and change that thing, that demon that he had inside him, would you like if you could go back and he just didn't have that side? Do you think you guys would still be together to this day, or do you think like the infidelity and stuff would have happened?
Ooh, that's a good
Like,
question.
if he wasn't physical, do you think you would have still just been thugging it out?
I think he was a piece of shit because he has 20-year fucking track record of being a piece of shit. But that's just my opinion.
All right, there you go.
Yes. No, you know, it's hard to say because I'm not the same girl that I was when I met him, right? Being
find that shit attractive.
no, like not like nothing about him now is attractive to me. Even when I think about my last relationship, I'm just like, ew, like what the fuck was I thinking, right? But I didn't, like I said before, take the time to heal and sit in my shit and be like, what is it about Lianne that is attracting this same type of man in a different
energy
body,
is crazy.
right? So think like being the woman that I am now, he would have zero fucking access to me. Like there's no way. The old Lianne, she thugged it out for 10 months.
Right.
She dealt with the bullshit because she hated herself. She didn't know what self-love meant. She didn't know what it was to trust herself or to value herself. She felt like this was all that she was worth. So that's why she continued taking on the bullshit. And it had to be, for her back then, it had to be something really dramatic, like almost losing my life for me to wake the fuck up.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but now you can't even fucking breathe next to me. Okay.
Hey, I was listening to your friend Giovanna's story, right? And her, you know, people tend to, like what you were talking about, kind of have this trend of dealing with the same stuff with different people or whatever, maybe attracting them.
Same man, different dick.
So I was wondering while I was talking to your sister, I was like, I wonder if it's not the people that Giovanna's attracting, what if she's doing something that's bringing that part of them out, right? So like, no matter who you put in front of her, maybe she's got some way of picking or nagging or triggering, or like she must know what she's doing. There's a pattern there that's probably like sparking this fire in this person. They're like, dude, I've never acted like that before, but this bitch gets the shit out of me. I don't know what it is, right? We've all had that, right? We're like, I've never acted like this before, but this bitch gets the shit out of me. I don't know.
Yep.
So I just, do you feel like you have anything that you were doing? Or
Oh, absolutely.
You're so much more mature and grown now too.
Yeah.
It's like hard to even compare like what you were doing at 21, 22 years old.
Oh no. Well,
Like, it
this
doesn't even
was
matter.
2.5 years ago, so I was in my 30s.
Even the first one though, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to be like, well, maybe I was doing this or doing that.
Yeah,
you know?
no, for sure. And I think that's the hardest part when it comes to the whole healing journey. Like I talk about accountability so much on my podcast. And I think that's one of the stepping stones for you to really start to get your shit together. Like, I knew for me, there was something about Lianne that was attracting this type of toxic partner.
Hell
There
yeah.
was something about, there was a huge lack within me that I felt like this was the best that I could get. And it wasn't until I, like I said before, sat in my own shit and took accountability and be like, you know what? Bitch, you were toxic too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm this angel and I never did anything, because I was very toxic too.
Right.
We all have some toxicity within us. But I think what's the most important part is that self-awareness and being like, you know what, there is something about me that I need to work on. And the only person who can make that happen is me. I can't find that in someone else to try and fix, you know?
The other night when we were on the couch and I was kind of like asking you a little bit about where your head was at as far as the dating game,
Yeah.
do you have like a chalk line, like timeline of like what you would hope? I mean, like for your daughter, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we won't get into exactly how old she is, but you know, she'll be leaving the house within like the next 5-6 years ish, right? So it's like, are you waiting till like, are you just like kind of focusing on getting her out of school and like into whatever she's going to do and then focus on that? Or are you like willing to, do you have a timeline, I guess is the question?
I haven't really thought about it. I know that the next time I do have someone in my life, it's going to be a while before she's ever introduced to them.
Hell yeah.
Because I made that mistake in the last relationship.
Right.
Like, she met him under some really fucked up circumstances. Our dad broke his leg. She had to fly down here when I was living out here. And it was just not a good time, especially with COVID going on. But I'm going to be super safe with her to make sure, like, the next person that you meet, that's it. That's going to be the last one.
Yeah.
And as however long that takes, I don't care. But my mentality now is like I told you when we were having that chat, I don't even have it in my radar right now
Yeah.
to put myself back out there, because I'm still focusing on me. I'm still worrying about me, getting my career together, getting my physical together, you know, my mental, my spiritual, all that. Like, I'm so focused on Lianne right now that I'm not willing to share that with anyone else.
Hey, that's the self-work we were talking about,
Yeah.
like how high value person, right? High value individual. But that's like
Yeah.
that's the healthy high value
Yeah.
is like the mental clarity and the health and everything like that, mind, body, soul,
Yes,
spirit, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
There you go, babe.
I want to ask you guys a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I want to know, because it sounds like rainbows and butterflies right now, but it's not always that way, right? Let's keep it 100. Yes. So what has been the biggest struggle you've both experienced in this relationship? How long have y'all been together?
It'll be 6 months in a
Okay.
couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest thing for me was not letting the past affect my present. Like, we have definitely had, I don't want to say arguments because they've never been combative. We've had disagreements for sure. And I think the biggest one that stands out to me was around something that you did that was very like innocent and innocuous, like, but for whatever reason, it triggered in me like this feeling of you're not being 100% honest. And I was like, why didn't you tell me this? And it was just like, well, it just didn't seem like a big deal. And then, you know, I start fucking spiraling. I'm like, oh, he's a fucking liar. Oh, here we go again. Here we got, this guy
same
got a second
bullshit.
fucking
Yeah.
life going on. Okay. He got a whole a second identity.
She even pulled up.
I did pull up. I
Oh, you
pulled
did the pull up?
Yes.
Oh, shit. Damn, bitch, you toxic.
I pulled up. I was like, what? How come you didn't tell me? Da, 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 da. No, I wasn't like that. But I was like emotional about it because I'm like, I'm not going to be fucking lied to again. This is not happening. And if this is who you're going to be, I'm out. So, you know, obviously we talked through the whole thing and it was just a huge misunderstanding. And I was just like, okay, bitch. Like, we're going to need to manage our emotions a little bit. We're going to need to stop jumping to fucking conclusions.
Yeah.
Well, I will say one thing though. It wasn't. I definitely didn't like gaslight you into thinking that it wasn't a big deal, because I guess it was.
No, you did apologize.
Yeah, but it was a big deal because so what happened, folks, was that I was at my house, at her house, and I was
Tell people where we live.
ish. She was at her house.
Edit
I was
that
at my
out.
house. And I was supposed to work that day. Well, I didn't really sleep too much that night, whatever the case is. I just ended up calling off and using a PTO day for that day. But I didn't let her know that I had taken the day off, right? I was at the house. I was just vegging out, like kind of like doing the cave thing.
Yeah.
And so I not only did I not tell her that I didn't go to work, but I didn't I didn't really talk to you throughout the day either, because I was kind of like in and out of napping and stuff like that, right? So, and I think it was like, it must have been around maybe like 7 or something like that, that I was like, it was the whole day was over. And then she was like, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm at the house. And she's like, how are you at the house if it's 7? And I'm like, oh, like I called off today. And that's when she's like, you called off, you didn't tell me? And I'm like, no, whatever. And then she's like, well, that's fine. I'm like 10 minutes away from your house anyways. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So, but it was rightfully so to trigger her that way. But I definitely didn't like gaslight her into being like, oh, you're tripping, you're bullshitting. I did own it. I was like, you're right. I was just so used to doing my own thing, kind of, I guess, but I never really had to answer to anybody other than my job. So I was like, all right, but she was right about that. That was like, when she showed up too, she wasn't like angry, but like just like the fear in her eyes, she was super scared. So I was like, that's when I kind of was like, I gotta be way more. I shouldn't have done it. It was fucked up. I shouldn't have done it, because that was like, if that had have happened, I mean, was that 2 months ago, something like that. If that were to happen now, or even like a year into the relationship, then that would be super sketch, right? That'd be one of those things where you're like, we tell each other everything. What the fuck, So yeah, I do own that, but I just
I think it was one of those situations where, like, when you're used to being on your own, right, and you're used to moving in a certain way, it does take some adjustment, a transition period for you to figure out how to be in relation. You're just not going to move the same way. And this is one of the things that we were talking about with regards to, again, marriage at first sight, where there's a couple and the girl has a lot of male friends. Basically, like, the chick's always hanging out with a bunch of dudes. And her husband's kind of just like, that's cool that you were doing that. Like, you were falling asleep on your friends' couches and shit, but we're married now. Like, I'm going to need you to move differently just out of respect for us. Yeah. Right? So I think it was one of those situations where, like, there was no malintention. It's just like, well, I'm just used to living on my own and not really having to, like, fucking answer to anybody. Right. And I totally get that. So it's one of those things that we encountered it. We talked through it. You owned your shit. I was also just like, I also need to not jump to conclusions and make it feel like you're doing shit out of malice, because that's how I was so used to being in an environment where, everything was done out of just because he's an asshole. Facts. And it wasn't fair to take it to that level that now, oh, you're a fucking liar. Yeah.
Well, that comes down to having healthy conversation, right? Because, she had the right to freak out the way that she did. And then I could have technically had the right to be like, we just started fucking talking. I don't really owe you anything. Right. Like, as far as like whatever, being open about what I want to do for my day off or whatever. But having the healthy communication and hearing why she was so triggered, and then her hearing me out and just being like, I should have done it, right? I should have done it. I didn't realize that it was gonna, look like that or whatever. Because I've never been a cheater. I don't really have to say that, but like I've always been a relationship guy, so I don't really move. I don't really have like the cheater mentality. So I think that if I had the cheater mentality, maybe I would have bullshit her and told her that I was at work or something, just because I didn't want to have the conversation of why I'm calling off or something, right? Because I was maybe a little depressed, had some anxiety or whatever. I'm just like, I'm going to turn off to the world today. Maybe I didn't want to have that conversation with her or whatever, but now that with the healthy communication is, and I already know with you and your next relationship is going to be like that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure your criteria, I was joking with your sister when we left Oxford Exchange. I was like, the next man that your sister gets, he's going to have to deal with so much, like in a good way, right? Yeah. But it's going to be, this man's going to have to really earn this shit. Yeah. It's going to be crazy. For sure. You know what I mean? And it's like, I think that, like you said, with that being said, the next one will probably be, the one for life.
I hope so. Yeah.
Do you think that the hurdle is too high at this point for anybody? Yeah. Like, can anybody break down that wall?
Honestly, for me, it would just depend on how they make me feel initially. Like, if I was telling this to Aubrielle, that's my daughter's name, by the way, like that feeling when you have the butterflies in your stomach, like I don't want that feeling, because that is like a sense of anxiety. Like I'm on, I'm on defense, like, oh, this person is making me feel unsafe. If someone makes me feel a sense of calm and that I don't need to be on 10 or I don't need to be on alert, that's going to be a green flag for me. That's how I'm going to know, like, okay, maybe this one could be a potential that I could work with.
Because you're not like, I think the butterfly thing is like one of those feelings that you do get when you're like, what's gonna happen?
Yes.
I am so confused.
Yes.
There's like no clarity here. You know,
that's what I lived in my
Fucking
last
breadcrumbs
relationship.
and
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, I was breadcrumbed. I was gaslit. I had all those things. I remember at a point in time before I got physically abusive, I woke up anxious every single day.
Oh my god, me too.
Every single
Me too.
morning, getting ready for work, like I wanted to throw up.
I
Like
thought it was just an anxious person.
No.
Like I thought that's just what it is. I was like, oh
It
no,
was
I
the
was actually
environment.
in a fucking toxic environment that was
Yes.
bringing. Like I don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
I was in an environment that was producing that.
Yes.
And
Same.
it was such a fucking wake up call because it was such a long time. I was together with this guy for 16 years.
Yeah.
That's the identity that I assumed. I'm just an anxious person. Shit just sets me off. I'm always fucking panicking
Yeah.
about something. I'm always waiting for the ball to drop. And it's like, I don't feel any of that shit with you. I don't wake up anxious.
Yes.
I actually got a good night fucking sleep.
Yes,
wild.
that is what I'm looking for in my next relationship.
Yeah.
So yes, my standards are very high, but that's because I know who the fuck I am now. Before I didn't know who I was.
Right. That was going to be my next question is, do you feel like you know exactly what you offer to a man? Like, because you're working on yourself so much, right? And trying to get past the trauma. But do you have like a list in your head of the things that you do offer for a man that would make you worth it? You know, because they like she said, the hurdle is going to be pretty hard, right? But on the back end of that hurdle, are you confident in what the man's going to gain out of you? That like the tools that you possess to be a good woman for a man. Do you feel like you have enough in the bag that it's going to be worth it? Because I feel like if you didn't have that, then the hurdle is going to seem astronomical
Right.
for anybody, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like unsure of what he's going to get out of it, right? I mean, what if?
People like even think about that because they're always thinking about like, what do I get?
Right,
But
but-
it's like, what do you
Right.
have to offer?
Right.
Because I know if I was working for you, right, I eventually I would have a conversation and be like, well, what's behind the curtain though? You know, like what am I working so hard to get, right?
Yeah.
Especially if it's not just a physical thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know, just food for thought.
I've never thought about that. I know I wrote out, working with my coach, I wrote out like, what do you want in a man? And I wrote like 3 pages of physical, mental, emotional, of what I'm looking for. And I know that if what I'm looking for, I need to reflect that back, right? Like I need to be the person that I'm aspiring to find. I can't be a toxic person because that's how I attracted the toxicity, right? So if I want someone who is emotionally intelligent, I need to be that same way too.
Right.
If I want someone to make me feel safe, I need to be that for them as well. So really it's just leading with that, like leading with what I'm looking for and that naturally attracting to me. But I
like
know
that.
what the fuck I bring to the table.
Right. I think that would be good for some of the viewers out there too,
Yeah.
actually, because I'm just thinking about this. I might even try to put a list together myself, but just why you would want to be with you. Why are you like,
That's a good journal
like,
prompt.
yeah, like, why are you worth it? Regardless of what, you know, what you want and what you deserve, blah, blah, blah. But what is that person going to get? Because you are a reward, right? That's really what
Facts.
you are.
Yeah.
So I think that it'd be good for anybody to be out there. Just think about, especially if you're single or something. I think it's good to just kind of like, instead of focusing on what you want, maybe look at what you offer, and maybe that would change kind of what you want. Maybe you're like, oh, I thought I wanted this because that's like a societal thing,
Right.
You
But,
attract what you are.
Period.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I want to end it with this final question. Since you guys are in the healthy relationship, what has being in this relationship taught you guys about yourself?
I think she probably has more on this one. What it's really taught me about myself. I think that it just really reassured me that I wasn't who I was in my last relationship, or what I was made to be, or like whatever that version of me was. That was also a COVID relationship, right? That was March of 2020, and then it lasted all the way up until like a year ago now. So it's I don't know. I think that it just really, I lost myself a little bit. You know, it's like kind of like being interrogated. and gaslit, right? You're kind of gaslit into thinking that you're this type of person or that you have the potential to be this person. Like, have this like door that's opened up. You're like, wow, I didn't even know I had that or whatever. So I think that's what it was. It just really reassured me that I wasn't who I was in the last relationship. That kind of brought me back to my core.
Yeah.
As far as that, I guess I would say.
Oh, that's so
no
cute.
Sales pitch.
That's actually, I would say the same thing too, babe. It's honestly just been like a rediscovery process of reminding myself like who I am at my core when I'm not under fucking constant stress and anxiety and abuse and stuff. It's like, oh wow, like I'm actually capable of love instead of whatever the hell that was, you know? Because I think every time that one of these things happens, it's like you become less and less confident in yourself about like your ability to discern what's good or what's not.
Right.
And this has been a good lesson for me of just like, oh, I'm actually capable of having a healthy relationship. It's all about not just like the work that I've done on myself, but also like who I decide to do the work with. Because in the beginning of like my dating process, I was definitely still attracting the same sort of person.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of get sick of my own shit and just be like, okay, maybe that just feels familiar, but that's also not the shit that's worked. So like, what are we going to do different? And I think that's one of the reasons why you scared me off in the beginning, because you were so different that I was like, I don't even fucking know what to do with this. Right. This is too much. Right. There's too much genuine, emotions being here. Like I'm just used to the fuckboy energy of just like bare minimum effort and, ghosting and breadcrumbing and all that shit. So I'm like, let's not do this shit again.
Right.
Because I'm not getting any younger. Yeah. And I'm really not trying to fucking just continuously have failed relationships and bullshit, Well,
that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So you had to move a little bit differently.
Yes.
I did want to say another thing too about my past thing and what she's done for me. I think a good analogy for it is like freeing up bandwidth, right? Because I was so consumed with the past and the traumas or whatever, and who was at fault, who wasn't, what actually happened, just replaying all that shit in my head all the time, that it was just always in the back of my mind. It was like having debt or like something on your credit or something. You're like, there's just that fucking thorn,
right?
And then once I was able to get with somebody that kind of freed me up of that, like now my bandwidth has opened up a little bit more, and now I can focus on all kinds of other things in my life that really deserve my attention and my energy, versus just this thing that I catch myself glossed over in traffic, and I'm like reliving some bullshit memory for no reason. It's just like always there, and catching me it's like dealing with some type of demon, just catching me in my random times. And so now that my bandwidth is freed up, I genuinely don't think about the past that much anymore. Yeah. I bring up examples and stuff sometimes when we're riding around. We're talking about, a part of town or a restaurant or something, or, just something. And I've had to kind of like try to like stop associating, well, my ex this or my ex's family that. Like, that shit gets old. She had to check me about it maybe like a week or two ago, and she's like, you got to stop talking about her. And I'm like, you know what, you're right, because I'm not even talking about her to talk about her, right? I'm not even thinking about her. I'm like talking about an example of like how her family was, or the last time I've been to this place was, so it's just one of those things that I have to be a little more cognizant about, because like once I get all of that out of there, then I feel like I lost weight. Yeah,
you got to declutter your spirit. So I just thought of one more question that I want to ask you guys. So, especially for the listeners too, like what would be a piece of advice, say for me, someone who's single, who is a little hesitant about putting yourself back out there because of your past trauma, but really wants to find their person, being that you guys are in the healthy relationship now, like what would be a piece of advice that you would tell the listeners?
Okay. So mine is going to be, you really need to stop letting the past have a say in your future, because it's really easy to default to victim mode, where it's like, oh, this shit has happened to me. Everybody in the world is terrible. You hear a lot of that narrative. Men are trash. Every man is fucking trash. It's just better being single. The dating pool is full of pee, like the whole fucking thing. And I'm just like, if you're coming into the world of dating with that energy, bitch, just sit your ass down because you are not ready.
Yes.
Okay? That negative ass energy is not the way to go.
Yeah.
You really have to be like, this is a clean slate, and my best revenge is being happy despite the shit that's happened to me. Yeah. And that's how I approach it. I said, fuck that. Everything that I've been through is not going to be for me to be a sad fucking cat lady that is alone forever and is never going to experience love because I just, I'm too fucking traumatized. No, I'm going to pursue happiness, and I'm going to fucking be so in love, and I'm going to find somebody who is like so worthy of me because of all the shit that I've been through, because I fucking deserve that.
Yes. Come on.
Preach, girl.
Yes.
Preach.
And that's what you attracted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, just like that, folks. Well, I think I'm gonna kind of use that crutch that I was just talking about a little while ago about really identifying what you offer and what you bring to the table. Is I think that rooted in that whole little thing is like you're gonna find self-love too, right? Because if you're actually paying attention to yourself and like what you bring to the table and all that, I mean, it's, you might not be aware of certain things or whatever. Maybe you don't want to address certain things, and all of that is like really kind of patting yourself on the back and like, you know what, I can love somebody, right? Or I have a big heart, or I would bend over backwards for somebody, or whatever, So
Right.
I think that my advice would just be like, above everything else, just try to figure out exactly who you are and what you offer, and if you would want to be with you. And if you don't want to be with you, then good news is you can change a lot of shit. So, I mean, there's a lot of shit you can change. I mean, it is what it is. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to add that whole self-work thing, like, can you share with us some of the work that you've done? Because I think, when it comes to what you should be doing after a relationship, a lot of people just default to downloading some apps and like, let me get some fucking distractions. But what do you recommend as somebody who is actually, helping people on that self-love journey? What should they be doing?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me was one, accountability. Like I said before, realizing that there was some shit about me that I had to work on. And the biggest thing that I did differently was not using someone as a distraction, not downloading an app and finding someone just to fill the void of me feeling that loss that comes with the relationship, because it really is a loss, right?
Like a rebound, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was the queen of rebounding with people, But I think the biggest lesson that I've learned about myself is that I actually do enjoy my own company. And I never realized that before. I always needed to have someone in my life. And, like we said before, the definition of insanity is doing the same shit over and over. And if I was going to go down that rabbit hole again of meeting someone new and them turning out to be a piece of shit, like I did not want to do that. Yeah. So I told myself, bitch, you're going to do something completely different. Like, we're going to shut this down. We're going to go within. We're going to feel the feelings. We're going to cry. We're going to scream. We're going to work with professionals. You got my first life coach for me. Shout out to Erica Kramer from the Queen of Confidence. That really helped me a lot. But like, really talking about the shit that I went through was the stepping stone for me to start healing my shit, which is how my podcast was born, Watch Us Thrive, right? Like really talking about that situation and realizing that I wasn't alone. I can't believe how many women, especially men too, but how many women are suffering in silence in these types of abusive relationships. And it wasn't until I decided to speak up and share my truth that I've been able to help others in their own. So I think, just not pretending to be this perfect person and not distracting yourself with these outside noise, and like, you just got to go within, like really deep into that shadow that we tend to push to the side. We don't want to bring it to the light, but that's how you really start to heal yourself, by sitting in your own shit.
And get some therapy, y'all.
Yes.
And if you do need therapy, you can reach out to our BetterHelp partner at betterhelp.com/corazon for 10% off your first month. Because let me tell you, we all have shit we got to deal with. And sometimes you're just not qualified to do it alone. So if you want to work with a professional, and you can do therapy from anywhere in the world, from your phone, your computer, go to betterhelp.com/corazon for your 10% off.
Yes.
Get that.
Do you guys have the Reddit? Do you have one for this episode?
I can pull one up.
Let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
Because this was a heavy conversation, so let's lighten it up a little bit.
Well, while she finds one, your family dynamic growing up, do you feel like you had a good example of what a man and a husband and a father should be from your father?
For sure. For sure.
No daddy issues at all.
No, we didn't grow up in a home that there was domestic violence, and that's what a lot of society tends to think. Like, oh, if you grew up in a home that saw this, then obviously you're gonna repeat the cycle. But when it comes to domestic violence, it affects anyone: your race, your gender, your social status, your religion. It doesn't matter. But us growing up, like the only thing that we really saw was not healthy communication.
Like arguing?
Yes, like arguing or shutting down, staying in other rooms, and then not resolving it. Okay. So that's something that I carried in my relationships, and I know Jannese did too. Like, I was not a healthy communicator. I went from 0 to 100, and then we would just go the next day like nothing happened.
How are your was that mainly when you guys were younger, or are your parents still like that now? I would assume that because you guys are grown and out of the house and everything like that, like I feel like they probably don't have much to really bicker about too much, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not as much.
Life's way more chill now.
Yeah, and I don't want to paint the picture that like they were arguing every single night, because that's definitely not what it is. And I know, shout out to Mom, she listens to the podcast.
Moms, let's go.
But yeah, no, as far as like growing up, it definitely was a home filled with love. Mm-hmm. We were never lacking for anything. But I know for sure, for me, speaking in my experience, I did not grow up in a home where I felt like I could voice my opinion without getting in trouble. Sure. And that traveled into friendships, into relationships, into all of that.
Kind of had to find your voice later on. Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Because it's crazy because your daughter, like, she's very vocal, right? Oh, yeah. She's very strong personality, right? She knows like what she wants, what she doesn't want. She, is not afraid to like ask any questions or anything, right? It's like she's at that stage now too where, around the wrong people or something like that. If someone tries to clown her for that, or tries to make it seem like she's abrasive because she's vocal about what she wants. Now, I get it. There's a fine line between being like a rude bitch, right? Or versus like being a confident, strong woman and just like voicing your opinion or your view on something. So that was one thing I noticed about your daughter, because I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me. I know that she's like 15, 16 years younger than me or something like that. But I just look at the younger generation, especially the women that are coming up, my sister's a lot like that too. She's very strong and vocal and knows what she wants. And I've always respected that, because I feel like that's going to get her so far, but also kind of protect her in relationships, because the guy that's the bully, or whoever's the bully, right? They get with someone who's like that. Chances are they're just not going to get with someone who's like that, right? I mean, because they're going to start talking to them at the bar and stuff, and just hear how dominant she is when she talks and stuff, and they're going to be like, oh, well, she's not going to, in the back of their mind, they're like, oh, she's not going to take, like, I'm not going to be able to pin her up against the door by her throat, because she's probably going to, knock my shit out. So I just really respect that about how you've raised her so far, because she's she's good. I know certain things are genetic, but she's got a good head on her shoulders. She knows what she wants. I feel like if the military ends up being her thing, I think she'll fucking kill it.
Oh, absolutely.
The military would be insane, especially the Navy. Like that would be crazy.
Yeah, that's that big Leo energy. And for me and my daughter, I've made it a point for us to have such an open relationship when it comes to how we communicate with one another, which is not something that I had with my mom growing up. Like, I never felt like I could go to my mom and talk to her about my feelings, or talk to her about like, it
would be just like judgment.
And with my daughter, like, she knows everything. She knows about the past abusive relationship that I was in. She knows everything that happened. And I'm very proud of that now she's able to come to me and talk to me about the most intimate, personal things in her own life, and she feels safe enough to come to me and talk to me about that. So
how did you ever do like discipline and stuff? Like, for me growing up, I grew up with my dad, and I think I got spankings up until like maybe 5 or 6, and then after that it was like chores, grounding, taking things away, or whatever the case is. So how have you like done have you really had to discipline her? She doesn't seem like a bad kid, right?
No,
she doesn't like hang with the wrong crowd. She's not out there smoking weed.
She knows, because I tell her, I'm like, listen, I want you to learn from my mistakes. I don't want you to go down the same path that I did. Like, as far as discipline, me and Jannese, like, we got our asses beat with the belt. Yeah.
Did you guys have to kneel on rice?
You had to do that one time, right?
The kneeling on rice is crazy.
That's abusive.
Yeah,
that's
shit's
like
gnarly.
wild.
Yeah, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, no, but I've probably smacked her like 3 times in my life. But that's just because like the wild disrespect. Like, you're not going to talk to me like I'm one of your friends.
Sure.
Like, even though we are young, like I had her when I was 20, and we do have like a friendship relationship. There's some minutes that she like pushes it a little bit, and I got to put her back into check.
Like, I am still Mama Dukes.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're
At
not
the end
gonna
of the
talk
day.
to me on the side of your neck. That's crazy.
I think we like verbally argue more, you know,
Sure.
like, because if y'all know, if you're a single mother and you have a teenager, it is hard out here.
Damn.
But yes.
So as far as like right now, if you had to like do anything, I guess it would be like the cliche, like take the phone or.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just take the phone.
Yeah,
That's it?
because that will break her world.
That's it.
Yes. Yes.
So what would warrant, like, when's the last time you had to do something like that with her?
Last year
Really?
during school, because her grades were slipping.
Oh, yeah.
And she was fucking around with people that she shouldn't have. And I found shit in her phone that was not appropriate for back then a 13-year-old.
Okay.
And we had to shut the social medias down. Like, I need all of the passwords, like everything.
Yeah.
And that was like for a good 6 months. And that really got her into check.
And now, like, do you like still keep tabs on her stuff,
No.
or you just kind of trust her to right? And then I guess you pay attention to who she's hanging out with, right? Like,
I noticed the change in her. Like, when the things happen, it's because she was hanging out with these people that was not appropriate, and her energy started to change. So when that happens, it's like, okay, now I got to do some digging.
Right.
But for now, I mean, she's getting older. She just turned 14, so now she's really focused on like high school and getting into the Navy and all those things. So
Right.
she has a good head on her shoulders
fuck
now.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So, here is the Am I the Asshole thread of the week.
Oh, God.
Am I the asshole for going home without my boyfriend because he wouldn't stop having conversations? Okay. My 24... Wait. Okay, so the boyfriend is 27. The girlfriend is 24.
And the girlfriend is the one writing in. Okay.
They were invited to one of their friends' birthday parties yesterday. I had to work early today, so we agreed on leaving early. Also, my boyfriend broke his foot, so I was in charge of driving. Around 11 p.m., I started to feel tired, so I told him we were going to go soon. He said, yes, let me just finish my conversation, and I said, okay. After 5 minutes of waiting, I tell him again that I was tired, so we needed to leave. He told me to wait 5 more minutes. But those minutes quickly turned into 10. Those 10 turned into 20, and those 20 turned into 30 minutes. At this point, I was getting angry because he already promised me that we'd leave early, but now it's close to midnight, and he's still talking. I go to him again and tell him if he's having fun and wants to stay, then I can ask his sister to drive him home as it's on her way. He said no and that he was coming with me. I told him that I was really tired and would leave without him if he wasn't there in 5 minutes. He said he'd be there. It's without surprise that after 5 minutes he was still not here, but having another conversation with somebody else. I told him one last time that I'm leaving. I guess he didn't hear me because he didn't react. Before I left, I go to his sister and ask if she can drive him home. She said she would, so I thanked her and left. My boyfriend calls me 10 minutes later to ask where I was, and I told him I left because I was tired and he wouldn't leave. He called me an asshole and hung up. He texted me right after and told me I was an asshole for leaving without him, that he was just talking to his friends and it wouldn't have killed me to wait a little bit more. He blocked me right after that and slept at his sister's house.
Damn.
I texted her and she told me he just needs some time to cool down and that me leaving without him really hurt him. No news since from him or his sister. Was I the asshole for leaving without him?
No. He's the fucking asshole. Period.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, the way that it just escalated, like, that just reminds me of not my last relationship, but the relationship before. Like, we would have such a petty argument over something so stupid, and it would be like, you're a fucking asshole. I hate you. I hope you die. I'm blocking you. Putting up subliminals on social media. And then the next day, it's like, let's unblock and let's just pretend like nothing happened. You know, like that. It's just, I think he was very inconsiderate of her time. She said over and over, we got to get up early the next day. You're crippled, so why are you even at a party to begin with? Yeah, like, go fucking heal your bone that's broken. And the fact that, like, she had to ask him over and over and over, he wasn't respecting her time. in my eyes, he was being very selfish and just worried about him. And then his reaction was very abusive, in my opinion, too.
Yeah.
Like, why did it have to go from 0 to 1,000 in 2 seconds?
It's giving Jasmine and Gino vibes.
Oh,
she tells him,
told him, I hope you die.
Oh my
bruh.
God, bro.
That's like, it's like anytime someone resorts to this child's play, right? And it's
Yes.
like right after something so small happened to you, you're like, damn, you're already saying fuck me because you're upset about something. Like, this is crazy, you know? And it's like one of those toxic loves where as much as they love you is as much as they hate you too.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just like they just riding the wave of whatever's happening in the moment, but it's like it's either 100% this way or 100% that way. It's not really going to be. But anyways, I think that he's the asshole. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, this is probably not the first time he's come out of phase. This is just the first time she puts it on Reddit.
Yep.
I'm like, if he's done this shit multiple times in multiple different instances, this is who he is, and believe him.
Yes.
Because-
Believe him the first time.
Believe him the first time because he's going to do this shit in all types of ways. Like, I'm sorry, but this is like way too small of an issue for him to have that level of a reaction to. He has no fucking emotional intelligence for me.
Leave him. Burn it down.
And plus, you know, I mean, I've got some friends too that if we go out or whatever, it's, you know, you pretty much know if they get started talking to somebody else or something like that, you pretty much know that they're gonna troop that shit out the rest of the night by themselves, regardless if they ride with you or not, right? And you kind of have to just like let that be on them. And so I think that now that she left him this time, maybe he'll heed the warning next time and be like, listen,
I don't think so.
my girl's getting ready to dip. I gotta go.
I think he's going to do it again.
Yeah, he's just gonna like he was just like throwing his power around a little bit, and then once he saw that it didn't work, she still bucked. I guess that's when he was like,
That would
let me
piss
hurt
me
her
off.
by blocking
Yeah.
her, and then staying at my sister's house, but making her think that I'm out here in the streets getting my dick sucked. Yeah, right, bro.
Oh, she's toxic too, but that's the thing. Like, family's gonna have families back. You know what I mean? Like, whether he's wrong or not, she's gonna defend her brother regardless. You know.
But it's funny because like literally before she left, she told the sister, hey, can you take him home? And she said yes. She thanked her, the whole fucking thing. So I'm like, oh, this is a pattern for y'all. Y'all are just one person in front of people and somebody else behind fucking closed doors. So are you sure you want to be a part of that family? I don't know.
He's probably a Gemini.
He probably was so mad that when his sister was getting ready to take him to the house, he was probably just like, fuck that, let me just come stay with you. And then she was like, all right, whatever.
Oh yeah, he was.
She might not even be involved that much, but I don't know.
Guilty by association.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, she's gonna have to ride for her brother no matter what.
I guess. Well, this was fun.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure that you're following not only us at Corazon Chronicles podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube, but make sure you're also checking out Lianne at the Watch Us Thrive podcast.
Yes.
And she's also on YouTube too.
Yes, I am.
I think that maybe before you guys go, maybe we could film an episode for your podcast.
Oh, well, this is going to be one that we're going to post on each other's, right? Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it's going to be a conjoined thing.
Yeah.
Damn, how long is the episode? A little over an hour?
A little over an hour.
After we get done cutting it out and stuff, so we'll have an hour.
Yeah.
You want to just put the full episode on both channels, or you want to split it 30 minutes, 30
Hell
minutes or
no,
something?
we're going to post this shit everywhere.
Facts.
And
All
tag everyone.
But hey, you guys need to make sure you go and check everybody out, right? And
Yes.
even the relationship coach, right? That you
Oh,
have,
yes.
You know,
Yes. Absolutely.
just dropping gems on you guys.
Yes.
All
And
right,
leave
thank
a rating and review, guys. That really helps our show boost to new listeners. So we love the DMs and everything, but leave a rating and review, especially on Apple Podcasts. And I think you said you can do it on Spotify too, right? Yeah. Show some love. We'd love to see it.
Hell yeah. Adios, amigos.
Bye.
See ya.